Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about what would we do about Finka. So Finka's an odd one, and this is not, despite how new this series is, this is not a topic or a character I was expecting to do one of these on so quickly. But as you can see by the most recent designer's notes in the Win Delta, Finka's up there. Finka has approximately, 64% presence. And she's winning a lot, it seems. So she's arguably on the stronger side currently. And as we did with the last video, I'm going to break this down into a few little bits and give my thoughts on it and then open it up to you guys and see what you guys think of it. So first things first, why is Finka so present right now? Like what is making her so valuable to the attacking side? Whenever we're talking about balancing our characters, the first thing you're going to jump to probably is going to be their gadget, which I'm going to put this out there now. I'm not a huge fan of Finka. Couple of reasons. One, I'm not a huge fan of global abilities in Siege. I don't think they work particularly well. When Finka was first released, I felt like she did a lot of stuff, but a lot of stuff that didn't have that much of an effect on rounds, which is why she was never that popular. It was also very confusing. I do like the fact that she had a lot of interesting interactions, but a lot of those have slowly been weaned out and kind of tweaked here and there. So as she stands now, I don't have a massive problem with her, but she's not a character I particularly enjoy playing, and I don't really care about. But all that being said, she's still up there. You can see she's standing out immensely on the attacking side. So her gadget, her boost. Again, as I just mentioned, I don't think I have any real issues with it at the minute. The heal is nice. The ability to res teammates when down but not out is nice. The fact that she can now do it to herself, which, by the way, why was that not in from original? Like, what? You can help the rest of the team, but not yourself? That seemed so pointless, but anyway, doesn't matter. She can now. That's the important thing. And I don't personally think there is an issue with her gadget currently, and I don't think that's why people take her. I mean, the fact that she can self-res might be tying into a certain playstyle, which we'll be going over later on in this video. But I don't think it's a huge make or break for Finka and why people pick her. So if it's not the gadget, then typically that brings us to the loadout. So obviously at the minute, as we're all aware, currently in Demon Vale, and I think a little bit beforehand, LMGs are running rampant. But especially the more I look at this Win Delta on the attacking side, I struggle to believe that. They are definitely very present, and there's been a lot of discussion over the last few months as to whether they need to be nerfed or tweaked or rebalanced or just reworked or whatever. And personally, I'm not quite there yet. I think LMGs, for the most part, do what LMGs should do. Which brings me to my next point. If it is the LMG that is making Finka so desirable, why? Obviously, Zophia's also played a fair bit, but she's not... it's not anything outrageous. So let's look at Fuse, who has the exact same LMG. He's all the way down here. He's got a less than 5% pick presence. So why? I mean, then you could argue, obviously, the gadget's different. Personally, even though the gadget is obviously very different, I think Fuse is stronger in many ways, and I think is typically more fun, at least from my experience. But either way, if it's the LMG that's making people pick her, why is Fuse not being picked? And then yes, you can make the argument that Fuse is a 1-speed, so he's a slow boy, he's a chonky boy. But Finka's only a 2-speed, so it's not like it's a 3-speed compared to a 1-speed. And so I don't know, that's still weird for me. And we're gonna dip into LMGs a little bit here, but I'm probably gonna make a separate video on it. But the core idea I'm looking at, based on what I can see here, Finka has the LMG. Zoth has an LMG, which obviously got picked up because of the AR nerf, which I don't really get. I don't think Zoth was ever really a problem, but that's neither here nor there. I guess that's for a different video. But then let's look at other characters with LMGs. Where's the next one? IQ. You could argue with the G8, IQ and Amaru. Still down here. Fuse, the exact same LMG, all the way down here. Ying. Again, even slightly lower than Fuse. And then you've got Gridlock and Capitao. So to me, it doesn't seem like an LMG issue. It seems like... So we're going to get into a bit more in a minute, but what I think is the issue here is a combination of loadout and playstyle, or player habits, I guess. It's very easy for the solo queuer to pick up Finka or Yana or any of these other characters that are typically fraggers, take the big gun that go brrr, and just gun everybody down, you know? But why Finka specifically? And I think this is where the loadout comes into it a little bit more. Finka currently has the LMG, which, let's be honest, especially in a round of Siege, if you've got the LMG, you probably aren't going to be using your secondary. So she has the Gon 6 available, so despite all the hate that the Gon 6 got, it's probably still worth bringing on Finka, purely because you can get rid of utility, even if you're as small and smooth of a brain to use it just to open a door so you can rush, like a budget Ashe. It's there, it's something you can use it for. And then she also has frag grenades. So she's not got one, but she's got 3 explosives that can be used for removing utility. Frag grenades can also be used for obviously removing players. And especially after the most recent set of Pro League matches and tournaments, frags have been shown off a lot with their vertical play. So there's probably some people trying to learn that and utilize that. And at the end of the day, her loadout is just super strong. She's got an LMG, and a good one at that. Gon 6, which, regardless of how you feel about it, on Finka can be useful. And frag grenades, which is arguably the best piece of attacker secondary gadget you can get. So, do the LMGs need nerfing? I would say no, because then you're going to be nerfing a bunch of characters that are already on the weaker end of the win delta. So that's just going to cause a nightmare for the balancing team to tweak them in tandem. So do you nerf nades? I know some people have spoken about this. I personally don't think nades necessarily need nerfing. I just think they need to be very, very careful as to who has them. And Finka might not be that character. Gon 6, I think, despite its reception, based on its utility and usage, should still be more carefully considered as to who gets it. And it's interesting because obviously Yana's out here as well, and Yana has the same kit essentially. She also has the Gon 6, she also has the grenades. I would argue she's got a better gadget. She's also got good guns still in the ARX and the G36. But obviously it's not an LMG that can mow down the entire team without having to even burn half the mag. Whereas if you take the ARX, which I think is what most people run, yes, it's very strong, but you can take 1, maybe 2 fights and then you're forced to reload. So, you know, Yana, you can see why they're both up here. But personally, I don't think Yana's that much of a problem. And this ties me into my next point, where I think currently the meta in Siege, personally, I actually quite like it. I think there's a reasonable balance of gunplay and utility, especially with the introduction of Azami. However, I would say it's leaning slightly into the gunplay side of things, which I'm not a huge fan of. I do prefer the utility side of Siege. That's why I enjoy it. But no, the thing with Siege as well is because of how finely tuned a lot of the operators are and how it's only a 5v5 game, and there's obviously going to be constantly evolving metas. I think that you're always going to have certain operators that stand out more than others, and especially because the run and gun playstyle that a lot of people do have, whether it's temporarily, whether it's just when they solo queue and that's all they think they can get away with, fair enough. Whether it's just on a team, you do typically have entry fraggers, or you might just have a group of friends where maybe that's all you want to do is run around and shoot people. I'm not a fan of it, and I think it's kind of boring Siege when it's just people taking fights constantly, but no, that's also down to how you respond to these teams, so that's neither here nor there. But that does make me think, does the meta need changing? I don't think it needs changing. I think the meta flows by itself as we get new maps and new characters, and has even, 7 years into this game's development, we're still learning new things constantly. So I don't think the meta necessarily needs to be directly approached in any way. But I don't think you can have a character with a good gun, grenades, Gon 6, and what I would argue is a reasonable to a good gadget. I have the philosophy that if you've got a character that's got a good gadget, like a really good gadget, they should have a weaker gun. You should be forced to pick one or the other, but I think it's a very careful line to balance along. And the same goes the other way. Maybe if they've got a weaker gadget, give them a better gun. And I think that's a better way of balancing them, and also kind of leaning into certain playstyles. That brings me to another point, which I've actually advocated for a long while, is does movement need changing in Siege? Because this ties into the run and gun playstyle, and it is fairly common at the minute. And I will say that when you're on the defensive side and you have Finka, a Zofia, maybe like a Capitao, if someone's feeling brave, and then like a Yana with the ARX, you've got 3 LMGs, an ARX, and maybe like a Maverick. That means you've got 2 to 3 LMGs, a solid team of guns, 4 to 6 nades, kind of 2 Gon 6s. That's a lot of firepower, and what I would class as like firepower utility. And it does feel oppressive, which is why I think some characters can get away with it in the sense of Yana. Granted, I would still maybe argue for losing her nades or the Gon 6. But for the most part, I think she's fine. Finka, on the other hand, because of the LMG, I think something has to go. And I'm not entirely sure what. I'd kind of like to see different instances of Finka. So Finka without the LMG, Finka without the nades, Finka without the Gon 6, or a combination of them. See what people enjoy the most, but don't feel like... Because I don't want to completely remove Finka. It's nice that she does have a bit of a place. And despite her having a global ability, the fact that it's a team-wide support ability in the sense of like a heal, I do quite like. There is an aspect to it that I like. I just don't necessarily think it, in general, fits into Siege. But as far as global abilities go, I think she's got one of the better ones. So do we remove the LMG? I mean, that's a lot of firepower she loses, but she still has the spear, which is a good AR. It's not amazing, but it's good. And at the end of the day, if a bullet comes out at the end of it, you can get kills with it. So, I think she might have to lose it. I think that's the first thing I would like to see, is a Finka without the LMG. Maybe swap it for something. She's already got the shotgun as well, the SASG, but try her with something else. Try her with maybe a DMR, or just maybe even a gun with lots of, like, a good chunk of rounds still, but maybe a lower performing one. Maybe like the AK that Nomad has. So it's got like, 40 rounds, but it's got quite a slow fire rate. Maybe try something like that. I think just in general, all of her guns are really solid, especially combined with the playstyle and the little bit of utility you can achieve with her gadget, whether it's just on you or team-wide. That's where I would go first. I think I would tweak I don't want to tweak the LMG, but I think removing it from her would be an interesting balance change. And maybe trying her with a different gun. But even just removing it, she still has the spear and she still has the shotgun. That's still a solid loadout. And then you've got, you know, nades, the Gon 6 still, and you've still got that utility, which I think the utility is the bit that I like with Finka. If you do have someone bring in a Finka, at least you know you've got someone with 2 nades and a Gon 6 and a team-wide buff. It's something that you can synchronize with, and you know, when it comes down to that last push, you can utilize. But maybe even tweaking a loadout more, maybe giving her smokes, or I don't necessarily want to give her flashes. I'm trying to think what her other gadget is, her other secondary gadget, to the point where you only run nades. If there's nades available, you run nades. I think it's very rare you find someone running the other gadget, to the point where I don't know what she has. Doesn't help that I don't really play her either. And yeah, going back to the point I made earlier, which I only briefly touched on, does movement need changing in Siege? I think there's always going to be a part of the player base that wants to run and gun, and you shouldn't nerf that playstyle too much, and you don't want to drive people away from the game, because, you know, the gun feel in Siege is very unique. Movement, I think, is fairly well balanced. My issue when it comes to the movement is how crouch walking is such an advantage, despite whether it's a good or a bad behavior. Or there's a lot of players I notice that don't know when to use crouch walking. So I think it should be tweaked in a way that makes it more valuable, but also more detrimental when used incorrectly. So make it so you can't ADS when crouched. Also, for the love of God, I know I let you be off for this so much. I know the sound system in Siege is extremely complex, and it's just wrought with bugs season up to season. But I'm sorry, a 3-speed sprinting should not be quieter than a 1-speed casually walking. More often than not, I feel like an Ash can sprint at me and I can barely hear it. Whereas if a Rook is wandering down the hallway, I know where, like, what side of the hallway he's on. I know whether he's standing or crouching. I know how far down the hallway he's gone. He might as well just walk down there with a megaphone, and it's just, that's my issue with movement. It's the movement and sound correlations that I have a problem with, and how easy it is to just wander through the map as a 3-speed crouched. Even if you're not utilizing the speed, you've still got a speed buff because they're at 3-speed, so they're innately faster even when crouching. I have to test to find out if a crouch walking 3-speed is faster than a walking 2-speed. I don't think they are, but I can't imagine there's much in it. So I'd like to see that. I'd like it so that if you're crouched, maybe you can't ADS, or you can't ADS and move. Maybe it's so that you could be crouched and ADS as long as you're still. But as soon as you go to move, a bit like when you transition to prone, or from prone into standing or kneeling, that it forces you out of ADS. I'd like to maybe see that, so that you can't just have the Ashe or the IQ just kind of, you know, off by themselves, just quietly sneaking around. And the amount of times that just triggers the life out of me. And I'm, for the most part, pretty hard to trigger. I'm fairly forgiving in a lot of ways when it comes to Siege and its mechanics and its complexity. But for the love of God, I don't think the sound and the speed system makes sense. Either you could be quick, but I can hear you coming, or you can be slow and have the one bit of advantage that being slow is that you can be a little bit quieter. I think that's how that should be. The faster you are, the louder you are. The slower you are, the quieter you are. Doesn't matter what speed you are. Doesn't matter what physicality somebody is. I don't care. Just the faster you move, the louder you are. That should be... You should be... If you're rushing me within the first 30 seconds of a round, fair enough. We all know how that aggression can sometimes pay off. But I should be able to hear you coming. Not suddenly, I'm still reinforcing, dropping my rook plates and making sure this rotates done and that rotates done and these prep holes are done. and then suddenly Ash is in the site helping me reinforce before she kills the entire team. That shouldn't happen. So just to quickly recap, because I don't want this video to go on for too long. Does Finka need changing? This is the part where I open up to you guys and I want to hear back from you guys in the comments. Tell me what you think. Does Finka need changing? If so, what would you change? Do LMGs need changing? I personally don't think they do, especially because it would hurt so many other operators that, let's be honest, don't need hurting. And do playstyles or playstyle related mechanics, such as the sound and movement systems, need tweaking? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm really trying to just branch out with this type of content in these videos. I think it's an interesting series. I enjoy making them, and I like to hear people's feedback and just what you guys think. So yeah, either comment down below or hop into one of the Siege streams whenever I get back to doing them, because it's been a busy few weeks at work. So yeah, come and let's have a chat and just talk about what's going on, and you know, maybe if we're lucky, we'll see some changes in the future, and hopefully it'll all be good changes. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, comment, all that good stuff. Take it easy.